right. Hey, it's Alison. Welcome back to Automatic Mouth. This is a podcast where we question everything. We rewire what doesn't work, isn't working for us. And I guess look at, ancient wisdom as well as modern psychology and give it a bit of a sarcastic glow up, I guess. Anyway, I digress. Today we're cracking open principle number 2 of the Hermetic series, correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. What does that even mean? Let's simplify it. This principle teaches us that the patterns we see outside of ourselves, out there, whether it's relationships, careers, habits, it often echoes what's actually going on in here, in the mind, in the heart, in the internal chaos. That's the echo is outside of us. So your nervous system, it's reflecting your inner programming, your relationship issues, reflecting your unresolved wounds. What about your days that just get full of everyone else's shit? Everyone else has got so much important things that need to take priority. That's actually reflecting your boundaries or lack thereof of them. Now, look, as usual, I'm not just talking out my butt here. Psychology, philosophy, NLP, it all backs this up. As I said, modern science is, really making this beautiful merge between ancient wisdom and ancient beliefs and kind of working out, well, how does that fit into today's society? It's very cool. So remember what I'm going to talk about today, it's that you're not reacting to reality as such. You're reacting to a mirror of your beliefs, your perceptions, your unhealed wounds, your unresolved stories. That's what you're reacting to. Freud called it projection. NLP calls it perception is projection. Personally, I call it your inside shit that you keep denying or ignoring completely, presenting itself in your outer world. And it presents itself somewhere where you can see it, almost demanding, aching to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged, and to be healed. So, okay, I know you might have got this far listening to this and think I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer or a bit of a judgmental bitch. However, I come bearing good news, my friends. When we change the inner world, the outer one has to shift. Trust me on this. Change the inner world, the outer world will shift. That's this correspondence principle in action. So if we're done with blaming Mercury retrograde, the Gatorade, for problems that we actually create ourselves with our own thoughts, then this is the episode to tune into. This is the one. I'm going to go through 6 brutal but beautiful reflections that you can check on when you're ready to upgrade that inner world and stop your outside world from freaking glitching. Because here's the thing that took me a while to understand. Life isn't out to get you. And yet so often that's the way it feels, isn't it? Like, bloody hell. However, life is simply playing back your internal playlist and on repeat over and over and over again. So let's go through the 6 reflections, and we'll see where we end up. So number 1, it's about patterns repeat. It's recognizing that first. Remember, what I want to do in this episode, what I trust that you'll take away from this, is it all starts with awareness. That's where true change begins, becoming aware of your role in stuff. Because then when you become aware of your role, you actually empower yourself, because then you suddenly realize no matter what situation you're in, you do not have to allow external or other people to write the script. You give yourself the power. And that's what this is about, empowering yourself instead of other people using you. So back to patterns. Number 1, let's look at some different areas of life and see how this may look or present. Okay. Relationships. What if you find you keep sort of, you've dated a few different people, You've been in a few different relationships, and yet somehow, eventually, the same emotional unavailability or the control issues or betrayal, cheating, it starts to become really familiar. This pattern in relationships, this can come from being unconsciously, so you're not doing it on purpose, unconsciously drawn to recreate the emotional dynamic of parent relationship or your caregiver, whoever sort of mainly was your role model when you were young. So you can find yourself chasing validation like you did as a child, repeating the abandonment belief, trying to finally get it right. This time I'm going to get it right. It's like blaming yourself, isn't it? However, yeah, it's actually recreating that early parental wound work. This was one that was relevant for me. You find yourself job hopping, and perhaps what if the reason you're job hopping is because you keep trying to escape toxic leadership, crappy leadership in a company? And yet somehow, no matter which job you end up going to, eventually, again, you end up having another shitty boss, a micromanaging nightmare that is still creates this toxic workplace. For this one, look at the pattern. Ask yourself, what internal belief is being validated by this pattern? Is it, I'm not trusted? Is it, I have to prove my worth? Is it, I don't deserve a fun workplace? I don't deserve peace? Because no matter which job you go to, you bring the energetic blueprint of yourself, and life will simply mirror that. So it might be good in the beginning because perhaps you have hope and you are looking at yourself differently. Eventually the pattern will repeat. These are the sort of questions to ask yourself. And let's do another big one. Money and that scarcity mindset. This affects a lot of people, doesn't it? Well, have you ever been in that position where no matter how much you earn, you always seem to just be scraping by? And I think there's lots of people in this position, and life is really freaking hard at the moment. And I get that. Financially, I think, 90% of the world is just scraping by. However, there are still patterns in this that we can look at and upgrade. Repeating a scarcity cycle can be tied to subconscious programming, like, so thoughts, right, of that rich people are greedy. If you have a deep-seated belief that rich people are greedy, then subconsciously you are not going to want to be rich because you believe rich people are greedy. You don't want to be a greedy person. See how that works? It sounds like it shouldn't, and yet it does. What about a belief, I'm not good with money? Oh, I've never been any good with money. I'm terrible with money. So then unconsciously, the outside is going to create an environment that will mirror that inside, I'm not good with money. Next one, personal boundaries. When you may get to a point where you feel constantly overwhelmed because people treat you like your time is theirs. They seem to have no respect for your time and just expect that you're there for them to do everything for them. So when you say yes, when you actually mean no, what you're doing is reinforcing, again, this internal belief that saying no means you're selfish. And you are reinforcing a belief that your needs aren't important. And so the world will treat you that way. It's about flipping that programming, that script, changing the belief. Because your needs are important. Your needs are just as important as anyone else's. And it's you who needs to believe that first. Let's talk about mental loops. Overthinking every decision. And then you beat yourself up for procrastinating and not being able to make a decision. That's a terrible mental loop to be in, isn't it? It's so toxic to yourself, so hurtful to yourself. And so this mental loop, it actually reflects a perfectionism underlying. A fear of failure is there. A lack of self-trust can exist there. And all of those likely stem from very early messages you received when you were younger around performance and conditional love. So the questions you ask yourself, if you find yourself overthinking all the time, second guessing all the time, and then being hard on yourself for not making a decision, ask these questions about your earlier life, where that programming came from. Do you believe that you were loved more or paid more attention to if you performed a certain way? They can come from this. And so that leads me into then family dynamics. Let's talk about that. Are you one of those people that always says, I'll never be like my mum, or I'm nothing like my dad? I swear, as long as I'm not like my mum or dad, I'll be fine. And then you actually find yourself either parenting or arguing with your partner, or your coping skills remind you of one or both of your parents. This pattern, it keeps repeating until you become aware of it. The awareness actually interrupts the autopilot that you go on. And please know, as we go through these, this isn't about blaming anyone. Blame is useless. Blame helps no one. Blame is judgmental. This is not what this is about. This is about becoming aware that we actually inherit unconscious templates. And until we become aware of those unconscious templates, till they become conscious, of course we don't change them. We can't, because they're unconscious. So we need to become aware of the template, of the programming. So then we can change what it is we want to change, get a different outcome. Patterns, that's what this whole first step was about, patterns. And I guess what I want to I can't think of the word I want, bring it all together, wrap it up. Patterns are persistent, hence why they're called a pattern, right? They're not permanent though. That's the empowering part. You can change them. We can change them. And patterns, honestly, they're the way that your mind is saying to you, telling you, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep sending this same lesson until you stop reacting to it and actually start reflecting on it, taking notice and rewiring the pattern, the programming. Until you do that, I'm just going to keep sending this same shit. That's what your mind is doing. So let's move on to number 2. I said there were 6. I will attempt to wrap up the following 5 quicker than I just did number 1. Number 2, your outer world is the feedback loop of your inner world. So this is following on from that first point. So again, think of projection that I brought up earlier. You actually see your own inner conflicts in other people. It's not because they've got the same problem, because you haven't made peace with them yourself. So you're wired to see it outside of yourself. An example of this, and again, as I said, it's called perception is projection in NLP. An example of this is, say you believe that people are not to be trusted, can't be trusted. So guess what kind of behavior your mind will filter for. Your mind is going to be on the lookout and filter for evidence of that belief. That's how we roll. And you can see this in like, to use a different example to put next to it, when we talk about, when you're looking up theories on things, whether you should immunize or not, regardless of whether you're for it or against it, you will find evidence that backs up what side of the fence you sit on. Our mind works the same way in regards to what we're talking about today. Your mind will filter the external world to find evidence to back up what you believe. So if you believe that people are generally not to be trusted, then mostly what you will find in your external world is untrustworthy people around you. Interesting, right? Here's some more examples. Are you constantly surrounded by drama? Does there just seem to be freaking drama everywhere you look? You just think, can I just get some peace? But no, it's drama, drama, drama. Everyone's having drama. What if that reflection is because there's an addiction of sorts to emotional intensity because peace feels unfamiliar. Peace is scary to you. So instead you create drama, emotional intensity, because that's what you know. That's your comfort zone. Again, this is like early wiring. So you've got to think back to when you're a kid. That's where this wiring took place. What about if you're someone who keeps getting like spoken over the top of? You keep getting interrupted. So what's your inner dialogue saying about that? Do you actually believe that what you have to say is valuable? Do you honestly believe that your voice matters? Interesting, right? What about someone who feels invisible? Feels like no one really sees them, cares. No one would even know if I wasn't here. No one would miss me. So the question I would ask is, do you see yourself? Do you take up space confidently? Or do you shrink yourself so that you don't take up space? What about if you're someone who attracts people in your circle who don't actually like listen to you, who don't take notice of you? I would suggest looking inside. Do you take notice of your own needs, of your own emotions, of your own desires? Or are you pushing them aside internally yourself? No, I don't need that. I'll deal with that later. And then you never do deal with it. So if you are pushing aside your own needs, emotions, desires, that's going to reflect outside. Because outside is where you're going to create the evidence that matches your belief system. So the takeaway from number 2 is I would argue that life isn't random. There's nothing random about it. It's reactive. The world holds up a mirror to us. And it's not to punish us. It's not about punishment. It's not blame, not punishment. To say, look inward. Empower yourself. See what you're capable of. Grow. Take up space. Become. And then watch the external world shift to accommodate that. All right. Number 3, inner chaos creates external disorder. I trust you can see that these, whilst similar, they kind of link together in a chain, okay? So they may sound very similar and they do have similarities. However, there's slight differences that I want you to take away from each one. So number 3, inner chaos creates external disorder. So I guess I've joked a little bit about this before, that, people who declutter, how good it feels. Hey, doesn't it feel good when you get like a skip bin and you just go through your house like a cyclone twister for those in the US and just, do a big clean out and just chuck out stuff, those clothes that you're holding on to because one day you'll fit back into them. Chuck them out, gone. So you do this big clean out, right? However, may I suggest, even though you feel better when you've done it, till you declutter the junk drawer that's inside your mind, decluttering your house is actually just surface level therapy. Makes you feel good on the surface for a little while. Eventually, the external environment will match the inner chaos. You'll just recreate it. So let's look at some examples for that. Sticking to a routine. If this is difficult for you to stick to a routine, that can be due to your internal state being overrun, overwhelmed with indecision, self-doubt, a fear of failure. So instead of sticking with your routine that you want to do, you create this like a million tabs and start 20 jobs on the go without actually finishing any of them. Create chaos, right? What about if you keep burning out? Again, this is one that I had to look at for myself. And you may see it in yourself or people around you and loved ones and whatever, where you just keep going and going and going and going and going and going. And then eventually you get sick, or you just, go into hibernation for months. You burn out and you lose your desire for whatever you're doing. This can stem from an internal belief that resting is lazy. I've heard this one a lot. That, if you might say to someone, oh, so, what'd you get up to on your day off? Oh, God, I was so lazy. I did nothing. I know I should have done this and I should have done that and I should have done that, and I just did nothing. Oh, no. And we're almost berating ourselves for doing nothing. Is that because we have an internal belief that doing nothing, you're lazy? This is, by the way, excuse me, this is an inherited belief. Okay? This is not the truth. This is learned. We have learned and inherited that if you rest, you're lazy. You got to keep going. You got to hustle. We can only change that when we start changing it ourselves personally, and then allow space, create space for others to do the same. What about snapping at people for the tiniest of things? Just something small and you're away from it. Those snaps, that's internal resentment, isn't it? It's stress. It's unmet emotional need. And I think most people are kind of aware of this one. That if you find the pattern is that you'll get to a point where you keep snapping at people, you need to look inside. What am I resenting internally? What am I not recognizing within myself? What am I ignoring about myself? What needs am I not giving myself? Those sorts of things. So the takeaway from number 3 is that when your internal world is chaotic, is in disarray, seems to be just everywhere, a mess, then your life is going to feel off. It's going to feel messy. So instead of blaming externally the individual symptoms of that mess, turn it inwards, go to the source, go to the system. Where's it being created from? And tidy that up. The external world will follow. Which leads into number 4, beautifully. Your environment will mirror your beliefs. Because remember, again, in your environment, you are looking for evidence of your belief. That's how the mind works. So, look around yourself now as you're listening to this. If you're in the car, look around your car. If you're, at work, look at your office space. If you're at home, look at your home. Your surroundings are your subconscious in physical form. I know that can be a bitter pill to swallow. However, remember, again, this is not about judgment. This is not about blame. This is about awareness and empowerment. That's what this is for. So let's look at some examples of that. If the space around you is messy, is chaotic, is, nothing's in the right spot, everything's out of place, this is a reflection of overwhelm, emotional clutter, a lack of internal prioritization. That's a hard word for me to get out. Prioritization. You are not prioritizing your needs. Everything else is coming before it. The emotional clutter. Have you ever seen, there's a great little graphic showing that, emotions, when they're just kept in your head, and it's this big, colourful, scribbled mess. And then the other graphic is your emotions after you, take a breath and talk about it and recognize it. And it's just these nice coloured lines all in order. And I really feel like that's what it's like. Your outside, your environment is going to be that big jumbled mess of tangled spaghetti, because inside you've not prioritized, how do I feel? What's going on for me at the moment? How do I feel about all these different tabs I've got open, all these different, plates I'm spinning? and actually give yourself some time to get it in order in here. See it clearly instead of such a scrambled fog. Yeah. What about someone who never sort of decorates their office space, their cubicle, or their office, or even in some instances, their home? Now, I'm not saying this is everyone. Of course not. We don't all fit into one nice, neat box, do we? These are simply just reflections. They are things to look at and to ask yourself, yes, that applies to me. No, that doesn't apply to me. And that's okay. We move on. So someone who never decorates their spaces, it could reflect a belief that they don't deserve nice things. So you're not going to have them. You don't deserve it. You haven't worked for it. Your needs don't matter. Comfort doesn't matter. Simple. Interesting though. What about your to-do list? Is your to-do list full of commitments for everyone else? Have you taken on so many commitments and you know they're draining you, and yet you got to keep doing it because you've given your word or you've made a commitment, so you got to keep doing it. This is to do with boundaries. And it can be tied to a belief that you're only useful. Like that's your value. You're only a valuable person if you are doing things for other people. If they need you to do something, then you're valuable. That's a tough one, isn't it? And what about someone who constantly, again, I'm talking about a pattern, remember? So not just a one-off, a pattern that settles. Whether it's you just settle for like, oh, yeah, whatever movie you want to watch, or you just settle for whatever, stock picture is on your phone, or even the bigger things. You settle in a relationship. You settle in an argument with friends. You find yourself in a pattern of settling. I think another term we use perhaps a lot for settling is to keep the peace. I'll just go along. I'll go with the flow to keep the peace. This settling, it's almost like saying to yourself, well, this will do because I don't deserve better anyway. This is all I deserve. That can be what's at play there. And so think of it this way for number 4, okay? Your physical world, your physical environment, it's like a self-worth report card, okay? What's going on in your physical world is going to be a reflection of how worthy you think you are. And so I'm saying you don't need to gut internally. You don't need to pull everything out. What we're looking to do is better internal standard. Expect better for us and know that we deserve better too. Remember what I said? This is about empowering. Number 5, I wanted to just take a moment to say, this isn't just about woo-woo, okay? This is also backing it up with science, with philosophy, with psychology, with NLP. Let's back this up with workable examples of how we can make this happen, okay? Look up for yourself a really great little philosophy theory. It's called Plato's Cave. Now, basically what it's talking about is that how easy it is to mistake shadows for reality. So we actually end up believing the projections instead of the truth until we go looking for the source. The source is internal. So until you go looking for the source of a belief, you tend to just go with the flow and believe what's being shown to you. From a psychology perspective, the projection and pattern theory. So again, Freud said we project internal conflicts onto others so that we can deal with them. Carl Jung, if you're a fan of Carl Jung, he has a quote. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's a a great quote from Carl Jung. In NLP, there's a saying in NLP, the map is not the territory. So what that's saying is that we react to instead of reacting to what is in front of us, we're reacting to our internal map of what's in front of us. And the map, that is what we've built ourselves from our beliefs, from our wounds, from our conditioning, from our childhood, from the programming. We designed the map. And so then we perceive everything externally through that map. So the takeaway from action step 5 is that this principle of correspondence, it's not necessarily just woo-woo. Before you write it off as woo-woo, see it as like a real, yes, there's a spiritual element to it. It's ancient. It's like a foundation and what's encoded in there, what's part of that, what's built upon this foundation are things from cognitive distortions in psychology to trauma loops. There's so much involved in it. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. And we'll do number 6, okay? And we're nearly there. Thank you for hanging in for this long. I know it's a big one. Number 6 is some action steps that you can take. And I sort of say, yeah, let's do that. Number 6, action steps. Let's do some examples. Relationships. You may want to attract a better relationship. Or what if you actually just want to improve your current relationship? Start, again, this is all internal. Start looking at how to heal attachment wounds, improving your self-worth, questioning those things that we just went through, learning how to regulate your emotions so that you don't react. You can respond. What about money? If you are wanting to have a better mindset around money, and if you recognize that you have a bit of that scarcity mindset and you want to flip that switch. So again, it's about your beliefs, isn't it? It's upgrading your beliefs around worthiness. What makes you worthy? Failure. What does failure even mean? What do you deserve? It's a great question to ask yourself. What do you deserve? If you find yourself getting stuck in cycles of procrastination or stuck in a cycle of self-sabotage is another one. This comes from fear-based programming. So what do you fear? If you're procrastinating and finding it difficult to make a decision, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And do not answer it with external stuff. Where does it come from? What's the source? If you change the coding of the source, the behavior of procrastinating or the behavior of self-sabotage, that will change. It'll follow naturally when you change the internal coding. Yep. So my takeaway from that final step is that real personal development, I talk about how personal development it can be quite painful at times because it's about holding the mirror. We're so used to blaming other people, blaming ourselves. It's all about that blame and judgment and anger. And real personal development asks us to let go of blame because blame doesn't solve the problem. Blame doesn't change the behavior. Blame does nothing except put another label of anger on someone. So if you ever find yourself blaming yourself, that's not a good road to go down. Okay? Real personal development is looking at things that you are not happy with, that you want to change, and then figuring out what's my part in it, what's the reason I do it, how can I do it differently. It's not surface level hustle. It's not go, a million things. It isn't shelf help. It isn't just buying all the books and feeling like you've done something. It isn't doing one course and then deciding that you're going to become a life coach because you think if you help enough people, then it will, sort of undo all the shitty things you feel about yourself. It doesn't work like that. It's deep level healing. It's going deep. Reality will bend to who you believe you are. So that is where the work has to be done on who you believe you are. I would say the universe, for those who, including myself, I love the idea of manifestation. I just believe that there is a deeper level to manifestation than sometimes what's put out there. I would say that the universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. Just saying what you want is not going to get you what you want. The universe will respond to what you believe you are. Your internal beliefs will be reflected in your external world. So if the world keeps showing you the same lesson, instead of why me, let's try asking deeper questions of ourselves. Let's go deeper. Questions like, where in my life am I repeating the same pattern? And what internal belief could be causing that? Go back. What's one area of my life that is actually reflecting what I truly think? What would change in my life if I stopped reacting and started reflecting instead on questions like these? These are the sort of questions you can ask yourself. If you have found this useful and you would like to do some more questioning and some deeper inner work on this, I've actually created like a self-mirror audit, a checklist, if you like, and it's designed to help you apply this principle of correspondence in a simplified yet really practical way. I'm going to put the link to download that checklist in the comments of this. So remember, please take a few seconds to like and subscribe, because the more people I get liking and subscribing, that's going to be what allows me to keep creating free resources like this one. So I'd really appreciate your help. Now, that brings us to the end of this episode. Coming up next, we'll be looking at the principle of vibration. So we're talking vibes, frequency, energy, and how that all fits, though, with psychology and with today's modern world, and how we can apply it tangibly. So I look forward to you joining me for that. Until then, I'll catch you then. See you later.